You're not being ignored by accident. You're being sorted. It happens fast, so fast, you don't even notice the moment you're dismissed. You walk into a meeting, and before you sit down, eyes already decide you don't matter. No hostility, no tension, just absence. You speak and the room doesn't resist you. It simply moves past you. Your idea floats for a second, then dies quietly. 5 minutes later, someone else says the same thing, and suddenly it's genius. You feel it in your chest because you know exactly what just happened. Then there's the interview. Same resume, same skills, same answers. First time, you walk in slightly careful, trying not to take up too much space. Rejection. Second time, same thing. Third time, you change nothing on paper, only how you show up. Straighter posture, cleaner look, slower voice, eye contact that doesn't flinch, and suddenly they want you. That's when it hits you. Nothing about your ability changed, only how you were read. This is the part that makes people angry because it feels unfair, and it is. But it's also real. The world doesn't wait to understand you. It decides first and justifies later. You're not failing loudly. You're failing quietly, which is worse, because no one explains it to you. Doors don't slam. They simply never open. You start questioning yourself, working harder, being nicer, explaining more, and every one of those reactions makes the problem worse. Here's the brutal truth. You are not being overlooked because you lack value. You are being judged before you ever get the chance to show it. And once that judgment is made, everything works against you. If this felt uncomfortably familiar, don't explain anything. Just comment, invisible. To understand what's happening to you, you need a different lens. 500 years ago, Niccolo Machiavelli studied power without fantasy or morality. Not how people wish the world worked, but how it actually operates when status, fear, and advantage collide. He noticed something most modern advice avoids. Influence is decided before arguments begin. Respect forms before explanations are offered. This video is not about getting rich, building a flashy image, or pretending to be someone you're not. It has a narrower and more useful goal: to show you why capable people are quietly sidelined and how to stop being treated like you don't matter before you ever speak. Machiavelli understood that people judge fast because they must, and once a judgment is made, everything else is filtered through it. Ideas sound weaker. Effort gets discounted. Access closes. The purpose here is to expose that mechanism and give you practical control over it. Not by changing who you are, but by changing what you signal. This is not manipulation. It is alignment with reality. The world does not reward who you are. It rewards what you signal. Once you see that clearly, you stop chasing approval and shape results. Most people think poverty disappears the moment money arrives, but that belief is exactly what keeps them stuck. Poor is not a bank balance. It's a signal. It's something people read off you instantly, before numbers, before logic, before fairness ever enters the room. Poverty shows up in the body first. In the way you walk slightly hunched, like you're apologizing for taking up space. In the eyes that break contact too early. In the voice that rises at the end of sentences, quietly asking for approval. In the reflex to explain, justify, soften, and over-clarify before anyone has challenged you. These signals don't say, "I lack money." They say, "I lack leverage," and the world responds brutally to that. You get lowballed because people assume you'll accept less. You get overworked because you look like you won't push back. You get passed over because you feel like a risk, not an asset. Think about two men walking into a bank to ask for the same loan. One enters tense, shoulders tight, words rushed, smiling too much, radiating need. He is treated cautiously, questioned aggressively, offered worse terms, if any at all. The other walks in calmly, dressed clean, movements slow, speaking like he's evaluating options rather than begging for relief. Same financial reality, completely different outcome. Why? Because one signaled dependency, the other signaled choice. Humans don't reward desperation, they protect themselves from it. They don't trust need, they exploit it or avoid it. This is why waiting to feel successful before acting successful fails so many people. By the time money shows up, the habits of weakness are already carved into posture, tone, and behavior. And until those signals change, resources don't flow toward you, they circle elsewhere. Money doesn't fix perception. Perception decides where money goes. If you've been blaming yourself, pause, because this isn't a character flaw, it's a cognitive shortcut. The human brain is built to decide fast, not to be fair. It scans, labels, and moves on because hesitation costs energy. That's why appearance becomes evidence, not truth, evidence. The mind replaces what it can't see with what it can. Discipline, reliability, competence are invisible at first glance. So the brain substitutes posture, grooming, and composure. This isn't cruelty, it's efficiency. When someone sees wrinkled clothes, slouched shoulders, or scattered movement, the brain doesn't ask questions, it fills gaps. Lack of order becomes lack of control. Lack of control becomes lack of trust. No one thinks, maybe this person is brilliant. They think, risk. This happens instantly and unconsciously. You do it too. You see someone who looks unmanaged, and your expectations drop without permission. You're not angry at them. You just don't give them responsibility. The same process is being run on you dozens of times a day. That's why effort feels invisible. The judgment already happened before effort could speak. Understanding this removes shame. You're not being overlooked because you're incapable. You're being filtered by a system that trades fairness for speed. And once you see the system, you can stop fighting yourself and start correcting the signal it's reacting to. One of the most dangerous beliefs you were ever given sounds empowering on the surface. I don't care what people think. It feels bold, independent, authentic. But here's the part no one warns you about. That mindset only protects people who already have power. If you don't, it quietly destroys you. There are two versions of authenticity, and confusing them is fatal. Authenticity backed by authority looks grounded and confident because your position absorbs the consequences. Authenticity without authority looks careless, unserious, and easy to dismiss. When you haven't earned leverage yet, being relaxed does not read as confidence, it reads as weakness. Being easygoing does not read as strength, it reads as flexibility, and flexibility gets exploited. This is why so many capable people end up carrying extra work, accepting worse terms, and staying invisible while telling themselves they're just being real. Think about the employee who responds to feedback with, "I'm just being myself." He dresses casually when the room tightens up. He jokes when decisions are being made. He explains too much to seem harmless. Inside, he believes he's showing confidence and authenticity. Outside, he's being categorized as not serious, not urgent, not leadership material. No one calls him out. No one insults him. He simply stops being considered when real opportunities appear. That's the brutal part. Comfort without status doesn't protect you. It exposes you. The same behavior that looks confident on someone established looks sloppy on someone rising. Until you have position, authentic is not a shield. It's a liability. This isn't about becoming fake or losing yourself. about timing and awareness. You don't get to ignore perception before you control it. You earn that privilege later. Right now, the question is not emotional. It's strategic. Be honest with yourself. Which one were you taught to chase, comfort, or respect? Comment comfort if you were raised to be liked. Comment respect if you're ready to be taken seriously. Most people choose comfort without realizing it, and that choice explains exactly where they're stuck. What comes next is not theory or motivation. It is a reset. You don't need talent upgrades, confidence affirmations, or a new personality. You need to stop leaking power through small, correctable signals. There are 4 methods that do this fast. None require money. None require pretending. Each targets a different layer of perception, what people see, how they feel around you, what they assume about your value, and how much resistance you face before you even speak. These methods work because they remove doubt before effort is required. Master them, and the room changes before you do anything else. The first method is uncomfortable because it's boring. And boring things change outcomes faster than dramatic ones. If you want to stop signaling poverty, you don't start by adding status. You start by removing decay. This has nothing to do with brands, labels, or price tags. The only signals that matter here are clean, orderly, and intentional. The world reads these instantly. Clean tells people you are not overwhelmed by life. Orderly tells them you can maintain systems. Intentional tells them you act on purpose, not by accident. When these are missing, no one asks questions. They assume answers. A wrinkled shirt doesn't say you lack money, it says you lack standards. Dirty shoes don't say you had a hard week, they say you tolerate disorder. A cracked phone screen doesn't say bad luck, it says you live with broken things. And people treat you the way you treat your environment. This is why a $20 shirt that is clean, pressed, and fitted to your body carries more authority than a $1,000 jacket that looks neglected. One signals control, the other signals chaos. The same rule applies everywhere. Someone who fixes small problems immediately, replaces missing buttons, polishes worn shoes, wipes down their workspace, repairs what's damaged, sends a message without speaking. I handle my life. Someone who says, "It still works," about broken objects sends the opposite message. Still works is the language of surrender. It trains your mind to accept dysfunction and trains others to give you less. Over time, this compounds. People negotiate harder with you. They push deadlines onto you. They assume you won't mind inconvenience. Not because they're malicious, but because your signals say you're flexible to decay. Think about how differently you feel when you put on clean clothes, stand upright, and remove visual clutter around you. Your thoughts slow down, your voice steadies, or you stop apologizing for taking up space. That internal shift happens because order creates authority, even when no one is watching. This is why cleaning up your signals often changes how people treat you before your results change. Decision makers don't analyze deeply, they scan. When choosing between 2 people with similar ability, they choose the one who looks easier to justify, easier to defend, easier to explain if things go wrong. Appearance becomes insurance. This is why discipline on the surface is not cosmetic. It's strategic. You are not pretending to be better than you are. You are preventing the world from assuming you are worse. Every clean line, every repaired detail, every maintained object tells the same story. I am not careless. I am not desperate. I am not unmanaged. That story creates hesitation in those who might exploit you and patience in those who might invest in you. You don't need to look rich. You need to look intact. When your environment looks under control, people assume you are too. And in a world that judges faster than it listens, that assumption is leverage. The second method is about the body, because long before people judge your words, they read how you occupy space. Power is felt physically before it is understood intellectually, and your body is always speaking even when your mouth is closed. This starts with how you walk. A rushed stride, bouncing steps, constant adjustments. These movements signal urgency, and urgency signals need. The man who moves quickly without purpose looks like he's chasing something. The man who moves slowly, deliberately, looks like he expects the world to adjust to him. Speed is not efficiency in the social hierarchy. Calm is. When you enter a room without hurry, when you take an extra second before sitting, when you move as if time is not hunting you, people feel it instantly. They don't know why, but their behavior changes. They pause. They look up. They make space. The same principle applies to posture. Collapsed shoulders, head angled downward, weight shifting nervously from foot to foot, all broadcast apology. You're telling the room you're hoping to be allowed rather than assuming you belong. Power posture is not stiff or aggressive. It's relaxed alignment. Chest open, spine tall, feet grounded. It says, I'm not bracing for impact. I'm not trying to disappear. I'm here. Eye contact works the same way. Breaking eye contact first, glancing away mid-sentence, or darting your eyes around the room signals uncertainty even if your words are solid. Holding eye contact just a moment longer than comfortable flips the dynamic. It makes the other person aware of themselves. It creates a subtle pressure that says you are being evaluated, not the other way around. This is why a man who speaks less often gets listened to more. He doesn't rush to fill silence. He doesn't explain his presence. He lets pauses do the work. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is confidence without noise. Think of two people making the same point. One talks fast, adds disclaimers, laughs nervously, and keeps going until the idea loses shape. The other states it once, clearly, then stops. The room leans toward the second person, not because he's smarter, but because his body language says the idea doesn't need defending. This is also where most people sabotage themselves without realizing it. By apologizing for existing, saying sorry for asking a question, sorry for taking time, sorry for disagreeing. These apologies are not politeness. They are submissions. They teach others how to treat you. When you constantly soften your presence, people unconsciously harden toward you. Body power is not about dominance. It's about removing signals of weakness. Watch someone who is respected. They don't fidget. They don't overreact. They don't rush to respond. Their movements are economical. Their stillness is intentional. They look like nothing is pulling them out of center. This is why the man who walks slowly into a negotiation immediately shifts the frame. He's not late, he's not early. He arrives when he arrives, and that alone changes the tone. People mirror what they perceive. When you stop acting like time is scarce, they stop treating you like you're disposable. When you stop apologizing, they stop assuming you're at fault. When you control your body controls the room. This method works because it bypasses debate. No one argues with posture. No one challenges calm. They feel it and adjust. And once your physical presence stops signaling urgency, insecurity, and submission, your words land differently without you changing a single sentence. The third method feels counterintuitive because it asks you to do less, not more, and that's exactly why it works. In social hierarchies, words follow the same law as money. The more you flood the market, the less each unit is worth. When you talk too much, explain too fast, or volunteer unnecessary information, you signal that your words are cheap and easily replaceable. Silence does the opposite. Silence creates space, and space forces people to fill it with assumptions. Those assumptions are rarely neutral. They tend to elevate whoever controls the gap. This is why people who speak the least often carry the most weight in the room. They don't rush to clarify. They don't narrate their intentions. They don't defend themselves before anyone attacks. They let others sit with uncertainty, and uncertainty makes people cautious. Think about the person who constantly explains their struggles. They tell you how stressed they are, how underpaid they feel, how unlucky their life has been, how tired they are of trying. They call it being open. What they're actually doing is advertising fragility. Each complaint lowers their perceived value because it tells the world they are overwhelmed and looking for relief. Relief seekers don't get respect. They get sympathy at best and avoidance at worst. Now compare that to someone who never over-explains. When asked how things are going, they answer simply. When questioned, they respond directly, then stop. They don't justify their decisions or narrate their stress. If something fails, they acknowledge it without drama and move on. People around them start projecting competence onto them without evidence. Not because they know more, but because they reveal less. The human mind hates informational vacuums, so it fills them with guesses. And those guesses tend to favor whoever seems least needy. This is where most people sabotage themselves without realizing it. They think transparency builds trust, but premature transparency destroys leverage. When you reveal your fears, insecurities, financial pressure, or desperation too early, you give others a map of where to push. You turn negotiation into extraction. This is why people who talk the most often get the worst deals. They've already shown their hand. Silence is not deception. It's timing. You don't lie. You just don't volunteer what weakens you. Watch how respected people speak. They pause before answering. They choose words carefully. They let silence hang without rushing to rescue it. That pause forces others to lean in. It makes your words feel deliberate instead of reactive. Even disagreement lands differently when it's brief and calm. A short sentence delivered without explanation sounds confident. The same sentence wrapped in justification sounds defensive. This is also why the person who never explains themselves excessively becomes hard to manipulate. You can't rush them. You can't corner them with emotional pressure. You can't easily read their limits. They are opaque, and opacity creates caution. In contrast, the person who fills every gap with words becomes predictable. Predictable people are easy to use. This doesn't mean becoming cold or silent all the time. It means understanding that every word has a cost. Ask yourself before speaking, is this adding value or leaking it? Most of the time, less is more. When you stop narrating your pain, people stop treating you like a problem. When you stop explaining your worth, people start assuming it. When you stop chasing understanding, understanding chases you. Closing your mouth at the right moments doesn't make you invisible. It makes you heavier. And in a world that judges weight before meaning, heaviness is power. Nowhere. The fourth method is the one people resist the most, because it forces you to accept a hard truth. You are judged not only by who you are, but by who you are seen with. This is the halo effect in motion, and it spreads fast. Humans don't evaluate everyone from scratch. They borrow context. They assume traits transfer. Competence, discipline, ambition, or the lack of them bleed across groups automatically. This is why one photo, one dinner, one meeting can quietly raise or lower your perceived status without you saying a word. This does not mean you must abandon old friends or erase your past. Loyalty is not the problem. Confusion of context is. You don't bring the same version of yourself into every room. You shouldn't. When you walk into a space with people who constantly complain, joke about being stuck, blame systems, and relive the same problems every week, that energy sticks to you. Even if you don't speak much, the association does the talking. You are filed under similar, not because it's fair, but because it's efficient. Now contrast that with walking into a room where the language is different. Fewer complaints, more questions, less venting, more planning. The same you, same clothes, same personality, suddenly feels heavier. People listen differently. Opportunities surface more naturally. Nothing mystical happened. The halo changed. This is where most people make a false moral leap. They think choosing environments means rejecting people. It doesn't. It means separating roles. You don't discuss strategy with people who only process emotion. You don't talk ambition with people committed to comfort. You don't bring battlefield energy into a living room. And you don't bring living room energy into a battlefield. That's not betrayal. That's intelligence. Think about two versions of the same person on two different nights. One night, he's at a bar with friends who spend hours complaining about work, mocking success, and turning every idea into a joke. He laughs, nods, blends in. The next night, he's at a small dinner with people who talk about leverage, decisions, and next steps. Same man, different context. Watch how his posture changes, how little he speaks, how much more carefully he's heard. The world responds to him differently because the frame around him changed. This is why successful people are obsessive about rooms, not crowds. They understand that credibility is contagious. When you are seen with people who are building, you borrow their seriousness. When you are seen with people who are drifting, you inherit their drag. You don't have to cut anyone off dramatically. You just stop mixing worlds that shouldn't touch. You don't post everything together. You don't bring everyone everywhere. You become deliberate. And deliberateness itself is a signal of power. Most people let their environment choose them. Powerful people curate environments to support who they are becoming. This method works because it reduces friction before it starts. Decision makers don't ask, is he different from his group? They assume alignment and move on. When your visible circle looks focused, you look focused. When your circle looks defeated, you inherit that label whether you earned it or not. This is uncomfortable because it removes the fantasy that you can rise without changing your surroundings. But it's also freeing because you don't need permission to apply it. You simply choose where each version of you belongs. You protect your ambition from casual contamination. You respect your past without letting it define your future. And slowly, without confrontation or explanation, the rooms that once ignored you start responding differently. Not because you changed who you are, but because you changed the signal that travels ahead of you. At this point, the pattern should be uncomfortable but clear. Change does not start with confidence. It starts with behavior. Most people wait to feel powerful before they act differently, and the waiting is exactly why nothing shifts. The body moves first. The mouth closes first. The environment changes first. Then the mind follows. When you begin behaving as if your presence matters, the world responds before you fully believe it yourself. People interrupt you less. They negotiate differently. They hesitate where they used to rush you. That external shift feeds back into you, not as fantasy, but as evidence. You stop guessing your worth because you start experiencing it. This is the part no one likes to admit. Identity is not discovered. It is constructed through repetition. The mask comes before the face. When you clean up your signals, control your body, limit your words, and curate your context, you are not lying to the world. You are giving it a frame it understands. And once the frame holds, something irreversible happens. You start seeing yourself through the way others now treat you. You take fewer apologies out of your sentences. You walk away from bad deals faster. You stop over-explaining because you no longer feel the urge to convince. This is not arrogance. It's alignment. The old version of you was stuck in reaction, responding to how the world misread you. The new version sets conditions and lets others adjust. This is why the change feels sudden to people around you. They say you've changed, but what they're really noticing is consistency. You are no longer leaking mixed signals. You are no longer performing weakness while hoping for strength in return. The internal shift follows the external one because the nervous system trusts experience more than affirmations. You don't wait to feel powerful. You behave powerful until it becomes real. That is the uncomfortable truth behind every transformation that actually lasts. Most people hear this and hesitate. They intellectualize it. They plan. Then they return to familiar habits because familiarity feels safe. But safety has already cost you enough. This is the moment where observation turns into choice. Either you keep letting the world assign meaning to you, or you decide what signal you broadcast from here forward. If you understand what actually changes your life, comment, "I control the signal." If you're done being misjudged, comment, "No more poor signals." And if you know most people won't change but you will, comment, "Architect." This is where the choice becomes uncomfortable but unmistakable. Nothing here promised wealth, status, or a dramatic overnight transformation, because those promises are cheap and usually dishonest. What this path offers is simpler and far more valuable. The end of being quietly dismissed, negotiated down, interrupted, or treated like your presence is optional. You may not become rich tomorrow, but you will stop being underestimated. And that alone changes the direction of your life. When people stop seeing you as easy to ignore, opportunity finally has room to appear. The world was never waiting to be fair to you. It was waiting for signals it could recognize quickly and justify easily. Once you correct those signals, resistance drops without argument. Conversations slow. Boundaries harden. People hesitate before pushing you. That hesitation is leverage. This is not about becoming ruthless or loud. It is about becoming legible in a system that only reads what is visible. Most people reject this because it feels unfair and demanding. They prefer to believe effort should speak for itself, then quietly accept being overlooked when it does not. You do not need to announce anything. Let the difference be felt before it is explained. Precision beats explanation every time. From here forward, you either keep paying the invisible tax of being misread, or you remove it deliberately. The world is judging you anyway. You might as well control the verdict. If this sharpened how you see your position, stay connected. Subscribe for clarity that compounds, not motivation that fades. And for those who know there are layers of strategy that cannot live in the open without being diluted, there is more behind the next door. Most people won't do this. That's why it works. Choose discipline now and watch respect replace struggle faster than expected.